Our universe is a vast and wondrous place, full of stars, planets, and other celestial bodies. But did you know that it's also filled with something much less beautiful? Space junk! Yes, today we will be exploring what space junk is and what if space junk became a giant obstacle course? Space junk refers to any human-made object in space that no longer serves a purpose. This includes old satellites, rocket stages, and debris from space missions. There are currently over 20,000 pieces of space debris larger than a softball floating around Earth, and that number is only expected to grow. But what's the big deal, you may ask? Well, space junk can be incredibly dangerous. At high speeds, even a small piece of debris can cause significant damage to spacecraft and satellites, such as recently in 2021, a small paint fragment had damaged the ISS. In 2009, a dysfunctional Russian satellite collided with a functioning US satellite, creating thousands of new pieces of debris and highlighting the need for action. And if too much space junk accumulates in low Earth orbit, it could make space travel impossible for future generations. So what can we do about it? Well, there are a few ways we can clean up space junk and prevent more from being created. One way is to use technology like nets, harpoons, and robotic arms to capture and remove space debris. For example, the European Space Agency is developing a mission called Clear Space One that will use a robotic arm to capture and remove a piece of space junk from orbit. Another way is to design spacecraft and satellites with end-of-life disposal in mind, so they burn up harmlessly upon re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. This means designing spacecraft and satellites with materials that will burn up completely during re-entry, such as aluminum honeycomb panels. It also means making sure that spacecraft and satellites have enough fuel to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere at the end of their useful lives. Another way would be using reusable rocket technology. For example, SpaceX has been actively working on reducing space junk through its reusable rocket technology by reusing rocket stages instead of discarding them after each launch. SpaceX is helping to reduce the amount of debris created during launches. Basically, during a launch, the rocket stage separates from the spacecraft and begins to descend back to Earth. The guidance and control system on the rocket stage allow it to steer itself back to a launching pad where it can land vertically. In fact, the first successful landing of a reusable orbital class rocket occurred in December 2015 when SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket returned to Earth and landed upright on a landing pad. Since then, SpaceX has continued to refine and improve its reusable rocket technology with multiple successful landings of both the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets. Amazing, right? So to conclude, perhaps the most important thing we can do to reduce space junk is to reduce the amount of new space junk being created. This means practicing irresponsible space behavior, such as not intentionally creating debris and properly disposing of old satellites and rocket stages. NASA has developed guidelines for spacecraft and satellite operators to minimize the creation of debris, including avoiding intentional destruction of spacecraft in orbit and using orbits that minimize the risk of collisions with other objects in space. So my friends, by working together and taking action, we can ensure that our universe remains a safe and beautiful place for generations to come.